Hey guys, Chef Mark here. Today we're going to make a version of a Szechuan beef. It's going to be a little bit fiery, but typical of Szechuan cooking, we're going to use a couple different sources of heat and a couple different bases of sauces, so all that's going to add to a good depth of flavor. Let's get our beef here. So I'm going to use sirloin strips. You can also buy sirloin steak and cut that yourself, but this is nice and convenient. All I'm going to add to this is the water and the cornstarch to make it nice and tender. So Chinese cooking and Szechuan cooking have a lot of depth to their sauces. This recipe is no different. So we're going to start with some black bean sauce. This is actually fermented black beans, garlic, really delicious. How about some chili garlic sauce for the start of some heat, and some chili oil, a little bit of additional heat, a little bit different, and some roasted sesame oil. I love this sauce. And how about let's start with our stir fry sauce. Wegmans version. Great on its own, but with all those other ingredients, this is going to be a fantastic, flavorful sauce. Let's go put this together. Okay, so let's put this Szechuan beef dish together. Keep in mind you can make this as spicy as you want, so you can really bump this stuff up if you want. But we're going to start with some, let's do a Fresno chili here. So it's not quite as hot as a Serrano chili, but it's got a really great flavor. We love it for this dish. And I have a glove on. You can use a glove for this. I recommend having one and washing your hands afterwards, because it can be quite spicy if you're touching your eyes a little bit later. So we're going to slice this into some rings, and you can get rid of the seeds or keep some of those off of there. I'm going to sort of just shake some of those seeds off. We'll use those in a second. So one Fresno chili is good. If you felt like it, you could start bumping up to 2-3 chilies if you're really into it. Let's take one package of beef and 3 tablespoons of water there. And we're going to work that around with that same gloved hand, because I'm going to throw the chilies in there anyway. This is one of those secrets that maybe you don't know, but this is in every Asian recipe out there that's going to make that really nice and tender. This is sort of that secret, right? So 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. This will make it nice when we put it in the pan. It'll stir fry nice, give a little bit of crust. It'll help it to brown a little bit as well. So that's there, and then the next step, we're going to start with our recipe. I'm going to take my peppers, I'm going to drop those into boiling water, and I've got my baby corn and my chestnuts. Let's cook this for about 1 or 2 minutes to cook those peppers through, just to soften a little bit. We'll drain them, and then we'll finish the dish. All right, so just a quick 1-2 minute blanch on this, and we're good to go. Lift that up slow, it'll drain out, and I like to put it in a bowl so the rest of that water will finish draining over there. And now, while that was going, I heated our pan up a little bit, so let's crank that up on high, and we're going to start cooking the rest of the dish. So I'm going to take some of my peanut oil, about 2 tablespoons or so. I'm going to add that to the bottom, on high, wait for that to sort of faintly smoke and get a good amount of heat on there. I'm going to take half of this beef, as close as you can to this, so it's not going to splash up on you. And then we're going to add it to the pan, spread it out so we get a nice even layer, and we're going to let that brown. We're going to cook this all the way through. We're going to do it in 2 batches with a little more oil for the second batch, and then we'll transfer it to a plate. All right, so our beef is brown. This is our second batch here. It'll be like 3/4 of the way done. So by the time it sits here, and by the time we incorporate it with the rest of the ingredients, it's going to cook all the way through. So now to build the rest of the sauce for the dish, and we'll bring back our vegetables. So we add the rest of our oil to that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some garlic. Got about 4 cloves or so of garlic in there. And at this point, we're just going to brown that a little bit, or just even, just the slightest bit brown, right? We're just going to cook that through. Once it gets to the point where you just start to get a little bit more fragrant, we're going to add our garlic chili sauce. So I'm going to have some heat from the garlic chili sauce. I'm going to have some black bean sauce to this. I'm going to let this cook, and you'll start to caramelize a little bit and really start to get nice and fragrant on there. At this point, we're going to add our Fresno chilies. There's another form of heat here. So all in all, we're going to have about 3 different forms of heat. Fresno chilies. Let's go in with our peppers. And the rest of our vegetables. So now we're toasting this a little bit. That's nice and dry. Let's add our sauce to that. So it's our stir fry sauce. Just going to give us a little bit of liquid, some soy flavors in there. along with that heat we just added. The last thing to do is we're going to add our beef to this. At this point I'm on high heat just to crank and just heat that all the way through. We're going to coat the meat. If you like to just toss it, that's fine. And then for the finish touch, we're going to add about a teaspoon or so of sesame oil, really fragrant roasted sesame oil, and then some chili oil. And again, here's our third point of heat. You can add as much as you want. I think our recipe calls for like a half a teaspoon. Some of you may want to bump that up a little bit. And all we're going to do is warm this through. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is put this on a plate, warmed right through, go directly on. Lots of great flavors, those 3 different types of heat. Really develops a lot of depth to the dish along with that black bean sauce. And all that's needed on the top of this to make this perfect is just a little bit of scallions right over the top. This is really good.